our attention to our game-by-game previews as we dive into the Week 4 slate. We will start with Baltimore and Buffalo, or Buffalo and Baltimore, however you want to look at that one. And Florio, what are you looking at in this one?
Yeah, I mean, Ian, Met fan, go Mets. Well, we're talking all New York stuff here, but I'm going to stick with New York's team and the Bills. I think you start all of the tight ends in this one. The strength of the Bills' defense is at cornerback, so they could potentially take Zay Flowers out or at least limit him in this game. And then I think that means the Ravens will attack the Bills just like they did the Chiefs, with a lot of volume running through their two tight ends. And on the other side, the Ravens, they are top 2 in yards and fantasy points per game allowed to tight ends. Dalton Kincaid is a top 2 target for Josh Allen, and they like to use Dawson Knox in the red zone, so he could be a sleeper for you tight end needy teams.
On the Baltimore side of things, I like Justice Hill as a sleeper this week. And you talk about the corners there for Buffalo. It's a reason that you see a lot of offenses sort of attacking them underneath. Quarterbacks kind of content to work within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage against the Bills. 65% of the attempts have been sort of short. They're throwing the ball heavily against this Buffalo defense. And while the Ravens still lack a true deep threat, I think we can see Justice Hill get some opportunities there. We know how the division of labor is split in that Baltimore backfield. So if you're looking for a flex option, a lot of people shorthanded at running back right now. Justice Hill could be a nice play for you in Week 4. We will go to the Vikings and the Packers and rank. I know we're waiting to see what is the status of Jordan Love for this week. Does that have you concerned about the Green Bay wide receivers?
Regardless of who the quarterback is for the Green Bay Packers, be it Jordan Love or the other guy, I'm going to say beware. Beware of the Packers receiver. Oh, you know what? I was just waiting to see what the new wipe was going to be. Can we do the wipe again? Because that was pretty dope.
That was pretty nice.
I want to give credit to the prop department, because normally I have to write things on a whiteboard to get them on the show and then they get airdropped to each other. But regardless, you know, the Packers are pretty proud of the fact that they don't have a number 1 wide receiver. But at the same time, that also kind of makes it easier in fantasy, because when you go up against a team like the Minnesota Vikings that has not allowed a lot of production to opposing wideouts, I think you just avoid all these guys altogether, especially in a week where there's no buys and you've already probably settled into the injury situation. So I would say, unless you're desperate to play one, you can move on from the Packers receivers this week.
Yeah, the Vikings defense has been pretty elite this year. You can't say the same for the Packers, which is why I think Aaron Jones is a must-start option this week. At least 15 opportunities in every game, and he right now has the second highest target share of all running backs in the NFL, and that is significant because the Packers are top 5 in breakaway runs allowed and catches allowed to running backs. So he also said he's going to do a Lambeau Leap if he scores a touchdown. You know KOC and all those guys want to get him one, so Aaron Jones and his sombrero must start in fantasy week 4.
So if he wasn't going to do the leap, they're like, nah, we're not going to get him one.
There's extra incentive to get him one.
I just want to see if they're going to welcome him in, if they're going to just push him back on the field if he tries to make the leap.
The consensus has been that they'll welcome him. He didn't leave like Favre.
No, he left on
saying like, yeah, you know, the Packers kind of put it on him, removed him for Josh Jacobs. I hope that's working out well for them.
All right, moving on. We got the Eagles and the Buccaneers. Dallas Goedert, a big week last week. What does he do for an encore?
You know what? For me, when I look at this Eagles offense and all the injuries that they have at the wide receiver position, I say that you have to start Dallas Goedert. Now, is he going to go out there and have 170 receiving yards? I don't know. But to me, the pecking order in this offense seems to be Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts obviously calling his own number at times, and then Dallas Goedert. They acquired Johan Dotson during the offseason, and it really just hasn't materialized. Mike Garafolo was on the show a couple of weeks ago saying that he's getting open. Jalen Hurts just isn't getting him the ball. And for me, I'm not really willing to really take that risk. So Dallas Goedert seems the safest to me. I would start him. And then otherwise with Dotson, I would just play it by ear.
Yeah, and Rank, kudos to you because you've been talking to Bucky Irving all summer long, and that is a huge reason why I have Rachaad White as a beware this week. Only running back to average less yards per carry than White this year is DeAndre Swift, and the Eagles have not allowed a touchdown to a running back, and they have faced some really good ones. Alvin Kamara, Bijan Robinson, Josh Jacobs, none of which have finished higher than RB15 in a week against this Eagles defense. So if Bucky sits by some chance, White becomes like a volume RB2. Yeah. But if he suits up, I think you try to get White out of your lineup.
I love that in one breath you praise Rank for being on Bucky Irving, and then in the next breath you fire a stray at a Bears player. That was awesome.
What was it? I wasn't even.
Oh, you talked about DeAndre Swift not having.
Why would that? That's not cool. I was going to say you could actually get me on the Malik Neighbors because I was worried about coming into the season. I was like, I don't know. I loved Malik Neighbors as a player, and you're like, yeah, but Daniel Jones is a quarterback. Apparently, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Really
It's
doesn't
going to
matter.
Kurt Henning it from now on.
We got plenty more game previews coming up for the rest of the hour. So next game preview, we got the Colts and the Steelers. Indianapolis at home against Pittsburgh, and Michael Pittman has been a riddle wrapped inside an enigma. What are we doing in week 4?
Has he? He's just been not good for fantasy purposes. So I think we sit Michael Pittman Jr. in this one. 3 weeks in a row, Alec Pierce has finished as the Colts' leading receiver. But last week, we saw Josh Downs as the first read on more plays than Michael Pittman Jr. was for Anthony Richardson. Plus, accuracy has kind of been an issue for Richardson right now. The Steelers' defense have allowed the 4th fewest fantasy points per game to wide receivers as well. So Pittman hasn't had a big game yet. I don't think the first one comes against the best defense in the NFL.
Well, that's the reason I suggest you beware of Anthony Richardson this week. You mentioned the accuracy issues, just 49% completion rate through the first 3 games. But he's throwing a lot more through the first 3 weeks than he did last year. Just 47 pass attempts last season at this point, 73 so far this year. And the touchdown numbers are down running the ball. Just 2 goal line attempts compared to 4 for Jonathan Taylor. Just 1 rushing touchdown so far this season. So the production just hasn't quite been there, and now a really bad matchup. Look, where you drafted Anthony Richardson, you might not be able to get away from him, but if you can, I would find somebody else to plug into that quarterback spot this week. Big matchup in the NFC South, the Saints and the Falcons. And Rank, what are we doing in this one here?
Let me tell you, during the offseason there, when we were talking up Kyle Pitts, a lot of people were like, I'll never draft him again. And now they were going after people who might be on the injury list or not be performing up to snuff. You bet you wish you had Kyle Pitts now, don't you? I'm starting him this week against the New Orleans Saints. Not only has he the most fantasy points per target amongst tight ends this season, he's got a great matchup against the Saints, who've been very generous to opposing tight ends this season. They've allowed a top 7 tight end in each of the last 2 weeks. I suggest that they will make it 3 in a row.
I do like Kyle Pitts this week, but I'm also a little bit nervous about Kirk Cousins overall. The Saints defensively have been sort of bend but don't break. They're giving up a lot of passing yards, 7th most allowed through the first 3 weeks of the season, but they've been nearly impossible to crack in the red zone. 10 passing attempts they faced in the red zone this year, 1 completion for 2 yards. They've not allowed a touchdown. They have an interception, and they've only allowed 44 total points so far this season, fewer than 20 points in every single game. So this feels like a game where maybe Cousins moves it between the 20s, but when they get down near the goal line, might be tough for them to get in the end zone, and that worries me a little bit there. The Broncos at the Jets. So now, Florida, you were just saying we should get away from a wide receiver that we drafted fairly high. You're certainly not going to say anything like that with like a guy like Garrett Wilson or anything, are you?
No, of course not. But this week, you should definitely be sitting Garrett Wilson. Why? Because Patrick Surtain, DK Metcalf, George Pickens, Mike Evans all played the Denver Broncos and Patrick Surtain this year, and all were held to under 30 yards. And I saw something on the internet today on Twitter where people were like, oh, well, Patrick Surtain's not giving up a lot of yards because he's giving up a lot of penalties. I don't care. We don't get fantasy points for penalties, and it's also not like Garrett Wilson is playing great football so far, just 150 yards and 1 touchdown. He is yet to be a top 25 wide receiver on any week, and I know he's played some tough corners. This is the toughest of them all, so I would sit him, and Wilson's run as the best wide receiver in New York, it's over. It was very short-lived.
Wow.
So you're starting Jalen Polk over Garrett Wilson? This is a wild take from me. I can't believe it. I don't agree with that at all. But I will say that Allen Lazard is a sleeper in this contest for much of the same reasons Mike was just talking about a moment ago, is that when you take away Garrett Wilson, and I'm still starting Garrett Wilson, but if I'm in leagues where I need to find a wide receiver, I know that Allen Lazard's getting a bogus touchdown because that's what Aaron Rodgers does. No, this is what he does. He's just going to go out and be like, oh, yeah, I'm going to go out and find him, and I'm going to throw him a touchdown because that's just what I do, and he's annoying everybody. I'm glad that Aaron Rodgers is now annoying the rest of you like he annoyed me for a decade.
2 almost.
There it is. After the Jets host the Broncos.
Bengals bring the house. Jade loads one up for McLaurin in the end zone. Kick. He did. Touchdown. Touchdown, Washington. Unreal. incredible.
They're delirious with joy in D.C. because of Jaden Daniels looking like he could really be the future for the Commanders. That gets us to our next game on the schedule. The Commanders heading out to the desert to take on the Arizona Cardinals. And I'm not going to talk about the quarterback. We know he's playing well. I'm going to look in that backfield, though, in Washington, where Brian Robinson looks like a must start for me this week. Austin Eckler has already been ruled out as he is in the concussion protocol. Look, Robinson was already having a higher route participation and a nearly equal target share to Eckler. That likely goes up. I'm not as worried about Jeremy McNichols taking a large part of Robinson's workload this week. The Cardinals, bottom half of the NFL against the run, giving up 123 rushing yards per game. I will admit, Brian Robinson has had more opportunity in this offense than I anticipated. I thought it would be closer to a 50-50 split. He has played very, very well, and it's hard for me to imagine getting away from him, especially this week against Arizona.
Yeah, he's been really good for the Commanders this season. My sleeper is Tip Ryman. No, I'm just joking. Kidding, everybody. Elijah Higgins. Listen, you guys, I know that sometimes Twitter's hard to decipher when somebody's kidding, but no, you're not going to go for the blocking tight end of the Cardinals. Elijah Higgins came in when Trey McBride went down and did get some route participation, did go out there. He's been seeing some snaps this season, so of course he is going to go out there and have some opportunity this week against the Commanders. I do believe that this offense is going to be funneled again through Marvin Harrison Jr., Michael Wilson. Those are the guys that have been catching the ball for this team. But given what's happened to the tight end position over the past couple of weeks, Elijah Higgins might be available on your waiver wire, probably is available on your waiver wire. Pick him up and start him if you're in a desperate situation.
Elijah Higgins is available in your league? How can I get in there?
Oh, yeah. He's drafted in the fourth.
He's
Were
been
you on a
gone in my
Commodore
league.
64? What
I
was
was
that?
I was being like a Twitter tough guy.
Are you on the
like-
desktop?
Bengals
Not on
and
a phone.
Panthers.
Like this.
It is.
Angry thumbs.
It is a revenge game for Andy Dalton going against the Cincinnati Bengals, but you have your eye on somebody else in that Panther
Yeah,
offense.
Deontay Johnson, never a doubt. All summer long, I said all he needs is a competent quarterback that could get him the ball. I didn't think it would be Andy Dalton, but here we are. And the volume last week is too elite to ignore. 14 targets, 142 air yards, 4 end zone targets. And you see the huge game he put up last week. He just missed a second touchdown. If Andy Dalton had half a second longer, they connect on another one. And we know the Bengals will score points, but they'll also give up plenty. So we could have a lot of passing in the Andy Dalton revenge game.
I got a sleeper, and I'm going to put up the X for Xavier Leggett. And I know there's a lot of ways. Jonathan Mingo is also in the mix here, too, but I really love the high upside of this rookie. I think there's a good opportunity for him because, again, the Cincinnati Bengals have not played well defensively. Well, where they've done a decent enough job stopping the run, but it's allowing yardage through the air, which has really been their Achilles heel this season. There's been a lot of turnover in the Bengals secondary over the last couple of years, and we're really starting to see it. And when we saw what happened last week with Jaden Daniels, I do believe that Andy Dalton, this is a revenge. I forgot he played for the Bengals. I always think of him as a former Bears quarterback, but I think Leggett is somebody that if you need to pick up a wide receiver this week, you go out and you do it.
That's sort of like longtime Florida Marlin Mike Piazza. Two teams in the AFC South going in opposite directions, Jaguars and the Texans, and I love the Houston Texans defense as a start in this one. Look, we talked about streaming defenses against another AFC South quarterback in Will Levis. Right now, Trevor Lawrence and that Jags offense really trying to find it. They've scored 17 or fewer points in all 3 games. Lawrence with fewer than 180 passing yards in 2 of 3 games, just 2 touchdown passes with an interception. Texans with 13 sacks this season, pressure on 46% of attempts. They are really getting after the quarterback, and Lawrence we have seen make some mistakes. He's also can be fumble prone at times, so if you got the Texans defense, put him in the lineup.
Yeah, and we must start Nico Collins. I'm getting a lot of questions about it, which is understandable because he was showing up on the injury report. People are like, what do we do here? You continue to start him in this one, and we all remember where we were for the great Texans wide receiver debate of the summer of 2024, and it feels right now that Nico Collins ended up being the victor of that. He leads the NFL with 338 receiving yards this season, 50 more yards than the next closest player. What we really need, though, is C.J. Stroud to get his act together. He's had 2 bad back-to-back performances, and I know part of it probably stems from the fact that you had to go out there and get a little wind in your jaw when you're talking to Caleb Williams. But listen, that's fine. Veteran quarterback C.J. Stroud had it handed back to him the following week when Sam Darnold went up like Sean McVay to Kyle Shanahan. Like, hey, You keep hanging in there, CJ. We'll see what happens. But we need a big performance from CJ Stroud.
I am hoping he bounces back this week.
We want him to bounce back.
We absolutely do.
Not against it.
Patriots and the 49ers. The Patriots offense, not super exciting, but you have found a sleeper here somewhere.
Oh, I have plugged Demario Douglas into far more lineups than I care to admit this week. But I think if you need a sleeper, he is a great one to go and pick up right now. The 49ers, they've allowed the most yards to slot receivers this year, which is where Demario Douglas makes his living. Plus, his biggest threat to take away targets on this team is Hunter Henry, and the 49ers have been shutting down tight ends for over a year now, and this is a game where the Patriots are probably chasing points. I think there's going to be a lot of passes funneled through Demario Douglas this week.
Legit, I know I was joking around earlier with Demario Douglas, with Jalen Polk. Would you start Demario Douglas over Garrett Wilson?
I have Douglas as a start and start him, sit him, and Wilson as a sit. So
yes.
Potentially yes.
So yes. All right. You mentioned Hunter Henry, and I am trying to stay away from Hunter Henry this week, which I know is tough because we've spent this whole show talking about how much of a wasteland the tight end position is. But tight ends against the Niners this year, 6 catches, 39 yards, no touchdowns on 10 targets. Now, granted, Henry might be the best one they have faced so far this year, but it's a low-volume passing offense, 8th fewest attempts, league low 306 passing yards. The best hope is that it becomes a pass-heavy game script if the Niners get out to a lead, but it's still not a matchup that I really want to mess around with this week. All right. Back to some of our game previews. The Chiefs and the Chargers. It has not been a great season so far for Patrick Mahomes, but we're going full speed ahead, right, Florio?
No, we are not. It's very nice of Patrick Mahomes to wear 15 on his shirt to remind us all that he is the QB 15 in fantasy football right now. And you see there, 17 or more fantasy points once in his last 12 starts. He is top 26 one time since the start of last season. So the floor and the ceiling are both significantly lower than what we have always become accustomed to with Patrick Mahomes. Plus, I know the Chargers are a team that he historically has a lot of success against, but they have been really stout against the pass this season. I feel like this could become a lower scoring, more run-heavy game between these two divisional matchups.
I definitely think it's a lower scoring game, but I still would beware of starting J.K. Dobbins in this one. The best rushing performance against the Chiefs this year, that was Lamar Jackson in the season opener. He went for $122. No other players had more than 46 rushing yards in a game against Kansas City. Justin Herbert expecting to play, but it's going to be less than 100%. That's going to make this Charger offense even more one-dimensional than they have already been. If I'm Kansas City, I am really going to focus on trying to stop J.K. Dobbins in the rushing game. Again, I know it's short at running back this year, but if you can get away from J.K. Dobbins, I would absolutely do that. Rams and the Bears, and Florio took a shot at DeAndre Swift, so I'm guessing you have another option.
I say nice things about the Giants, and you're coming out here in your pie hole. Whatever. I'm going to say this. Had I been a part of the leadership council that sat down and spoke with offensive coordinator Shane Waldron this week, my biggest takeaway would have been get the ball into the hands of Rashawn Johnson, who I have as a sleeper this week. And again, this is probably mostly wish casting, trying to forecast what the Bears players were possibly saying. But I think one of the things that the Bears want to stress coming into these weeks is, number one, getting the plays out quicker so Caleb Williams gets an opportunity to diagnose what's going on. The reason they ran that horrific play at the goal line against the Colts was because he didn't get a chance to option out of it because the play call got in there too late. But the second thing is that Roschon looked excellent running the football, and the Bears need to establish the run, especially against a team like the Rams that have given up a lot of production on the ground this season.
Over to the Browns and the Raiders. Of course, you just saw the news that Devontae Adams is out for this week. Brock Bowers, I know, is going to be a start. Anybody else, Rank, you might be starting?
Well, I look at this one, and to me, I can't believe I'm starting Zamir White. I have to. I literally have to. I don't, and you know what? And don't get on my case, because I actually said this on GMFB this morning. And Peter was like, Rank, I'm with you. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not what I need. I don't need to trying to like reinforce my bad decisions. I need somebody to try to talk me out of this. But I'm going to give Zamir White one more chance. Mostly, I drafted CMC and Rashad and some other, not Rashad White, but Kenny Walker and all those guys. Yeah. Isaiah Pacheco. There's nobody else for me to start.
There it is. All right, last 2 minutes of the week.